Hello and welcome to topic 3 of our module 1 on environmental basics. In this topic, we shall be studying ecological concepts. A quick recap to what is an ecosystem. The functional and structural unit of ecology is an ecosystem. The interactions among the biotic and abiotic components form a lot of complicated functional units, the food web, the food pyramids, the nutrient cycling, the biochemical cycles is what we shall be covering in this topic today. So let's begin. Ecological pyramids. As you can see in this picture, the picture is quite like a pyramid. But what does this indicate? An ecological pyramid is a graphical representation of the number, the energy, and the biomass of the successive trophic levels of an ecosystem. As we saw that it starts from the solar energy that the producers capture from the sun, to the little squirrel that ate those plants, to the fox that ate the squirrel, to the fox that died and the decomposers decomposing its body, is all part of a cycle, and that forms ecological pyramids. Ecological pyramids are of three types: of energy, of biomass, and of number. It is an important thing to remember that Charles Elton was the first ecologist to describe an ecological pyramid and its principle as early as in 1927. Let's begin. Ecological pyramids. As we can see in an ecological pyramid of energy, of biomass, and of number over here, the shape is all upright. So what does an upright shape mean? It means that it's larger at its base. The base is more broad and the top is narrow. This is upright. An inverted pyramid is this. Inverted. Here the base is small and the top is heavier. Coming to the pyramid of number. It literally means the count of the organisms at a particular trophic level. You literally need to count. Let's take a very simple example before we delve into the nitty-gritties in a ecosystem. Let's say this is your room, this is your bed, and this is you, and that's your sibling, and that's your cat, and this is the food that your mother has given. She had to go somewhere outside, so she made food for you, and it's all in the fridge for 1 month. So the ration that your mother has kept here is 1 month, right? So technically in this room, this food that you will be eating, and there's a tiny little mouse that is in this room that your cat has to eat. So this food is the food. This mouse might eat this food. If it's lucky, he will eat this food. Is this T2. This cat that wants to eat this mouse is T3. And you, who has to eat this food at the top of this room pyramid, in this room you are at the top of the food chain, because you can eat anything you want. You can eat the cat also, you can eat the mouse also, you can eat the food also. So you're at the top of the pyramid. Now let's see the number. The food is too much. Let's say there are 2 mice. So the food is too much. Let's say there is 100 packets that your mother has prepared, and she has said that okay, just put it in the microwave and defrost it and eat. 100 packets of food, and then you have 2 mice living in the room, and then you have 1 cat living in the room, and then you have 2 people in this room. Now this might go a little in another shape, which is again another shape we are seeing over here. It could be a different shape. It could be a spindle shape as well. It's not necessary that it has to be an upright or an inverted. It can be of different shape as well, जैसा कि हमारा यहाँ पे बना है. So pyramid of numbers focuses on the count of the individual organism. It focuses on the count quite literally. 100 packets of food, 2 mice, 1 cat, 2 people at each trophic level. The base is the widest level is occupied by the producers. Here the food was ready made, so let's not confuse it. Here the base is always occupied by the producers, the plants or the algae, which are often extremely numerous. So there's a lot of algae growing everywhere, if you can see. In dense, damp forests, if there are not a lot of trees, there will be a lot of algae growing at least. In old buildings, there's a lot of algae growing there as well. The next level is formed by the primary consumers, followed by secondary and tertiary consumers. So let's take an example of pyramid of number over here. There's a lot of grass. This is grass. Then there are insects, the mice, the mole. Just a second. And then we have at an upper level snakes or crocodiles. So you can't find them in a farm, but let's say snake. And then there's an eagle. As we go up, the number is decreasing. If there's, let's say, blades of grass, can you really count a blade of grass? In a place as small as the size of my palm, I can fill in 50 blades of grass. So in a big forest, if we have to count the number of the blades of grass, they would go in billions. So numerically, the base is the broadest over here. Coming next to the pyramid of biomass. As the word suggests, mass. The biomass. Now weight is equal to mass into gravity. But what is the mass? It's what you constitute of, right? Now let's come over here and measure the weight. Now like we counted the blades of grass, let's see what the weight of those producers and those big trees would be. They will be so heavy. They will be weighing in about 10,000 kgs, 1,000 kgs, and heavier, bigger trees would be so heavy and so big. Then we come on to the herbivores on our second trophic level. The deer, the rabbits, they will be a little less in number, and because they'll be a little less in number is why they'll also weigh a little less than those huge humongous trees. Let's say 100 gram. Coming to the primary carnivore, a fox. I would say a 50 kgs. And then the top carnivore, the king of the jungle, only one in number, let's say it's a little less weight, 1 kg, but let's say the biomass is 10 kgs. The biomass. Now because the number is decreasing upwise, like we started in the previous chart, the weight will also consequently decrease, which would result in an upright pyramid in a terrestrial ecosystem. But let's come over here. In an aquatic ecosystem, at the top we have a big blue whale, and there's definitely not one, there would be many, is why this is an inverted pyramid. So the pyramid of biomass compares the total dry weight or living organic matter of an organism at each trophic level. Producers form the heaviest bulk usually, so they create a broad base in an upright pyramid. Consumers tend to have less total biomass at the higher trophic level. Hence, an upright pyramid is formed. Coming next to the pyramid of energy. Now, like we studied in the previous one, that there's a sun that's giving solar energy, and this energy is being trapped by a plant, let's say, or a tree, right? It's being trapped, and then this is being eaten by a squirrel. The squirrel is eaten by a fox. The fox then dies, goes back into the soil, where we have decomposers, which will replenish it and send the nutrient back to this. Now, coming back to the pyramid of energy. Why did I make this? Because to tell you that energy, as a simple rule, can never be created, cannot be created, cannot be destroyed, but changes its form. And when it changes its form, how does it change its form? Like we started over here. All of this is where the energy is changing form. So the solar energy is trapped by the primary producers, which is taken by the primary consumers, and always as the energy moves through these trophic levels, there is a loss of energy. There is a loss of energy. Is why the energy will keep on decreasing as it goes up. The energy pyramid is consistently upright because the flow of energy in a food chain is unidirectional, always moving from the producers to the consumers, and it's never possible that it can be reversed. Why? Because energy moves the trophic levels, there is a loss of energy to the environment. It's but natural. Is why an important fact to note arises that an energy pyramid will always be upright. Always. So, trivia time, a question for you. Pyramid of biomass in an aquatic ecosystem. Aquatic ecosystem. What would it be? Let's think about it and answer me later. Coming next to food chains. Food chains. Like the example of your room I just gave you. Who eats whom in the circle of life? You can eat the food. You can also eat the mouse if you want to. Like in Man vs. Wild. You could also eat the cat. But in this scenario, what is practically possible is that you will only eat the food, the cat will only eat the mouse, but the mouse can also eat the food. So it forms a food chain. And when many food chains are intermingled, they form a food web. As the word suggests, it forms a web. A linear sequence of organisms through which energy and nutrients flow by consumption. Now, all this energy flow that I talked about, how does this happen? Why is the squirrel eating the plant? Why is the fox eating the squirrel? Why is the plant trapping solar energy? Why is the fox dying to the decomposer? Is as simple. The answer is they all are form of a food chain. They have to do these interactions. So like I mentioned earlier, nothing in this nature happens without any reason. All these things are happening for a reason. And that reason is to replenish energy, replenish nutrients, create food for the consumers, and create oxygen and use solar energy. And this interaction is called food chain, and a bigger interaction of many food chain is called food web. Now, biochemical cycles. Biochemical cycles refer to the movement of nutrients and other elements between biotic and abiotic factors. Now, because everything starts from using the sun's energy, which is an abiotic factor, to the plant, to the squirrel, to the fox, to the decomposers, the biotic factors. The movement of nutrients. The plants are fixing carbon dioxide, releasing oxygen. The squirrel is eating that food, it's taking in oxygen. The fox is eating that oxygen. The fox is dying, it's going back into the soil. The roots of those plants are fixing that decomposed fox again into usable nutrients. So, all this movement of nutrients is a biochemical cycle. The matter on the earth is covered and present in the form of atoms. Like I said earlier, we are made up of carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, and sulfur. मिट्टी में आए थे मिट्टी में जाएंगे is very true. We're all made up of atoms and we are all going to go back to the same soil. Since matter can either be created or destroyed like energy, it is recycled in the Earth's system in various forms. We keep volunteering the cause of reuse, recycle, reduce. But look at the nature. It is recycling everything on its own. And we must take inspiration that if nature can do things on its own, we can at least help aid these processes and not become a hindrance. Coming back, the earth obtains energy from the sun, source of all energy, which is radiated back as heat, which we studied in the energy cycle, that as we go above in the trophic level, there is radiation of heat. Rest all other elements are present in a closed system. Their major elements include carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, sulfur, which are recycled through biotic and abiotic components in the atmosphere, hydrosphere, lithosphere. And all of this is recycled where? It's recycled in the atmosphere, the hydrosphere, the lithosphere. The lithosphere means the earth where everything is happening, the hydrosphere, the water, the atmosphere, the air. So these biochemical cycles refer to the movement of nutrients and other elements between these factors. They're basically of two types: the gaseous cycles, sedimentary cycles. The biochemical cycles again refer to the movement of nutrients and other elements between the biotic and abiotic factors. They're basically of two types: gaseous cycles and sedimentary cycles. Gaseous cycles often operate in the atmosphere. The sedimentary cycles operate in the lithosphere. And there's one cycle which is the water cycle. This cycle operates both in the atmosphere and the hydrosphere. The first cycle that we are going to cover is the water cycle. As we can see, the hydrologic cycle, the water cycle. There's water in the water bodies, let's say an ocean. It's being evaporated because of the sun's heat. Sun is giving heat and the water is being evaporated. Where is it going? It's forming clouds. What do the clouds do after a certain level of turbidity in them? They precipitate. If it's a mountain, high altitude, because of the less temperature, it will form ice, or else it will fall down as water and form another lake. This water will be taken by the roots of the trees, and that tree will have leaves, from which again transpiration. You will not call this evaporation. The process where leaves lose water to the environment is transpiration. They lose it through transpiration. The leaves transpire. Through transpiration, we'll have the water evaporating back into the atmosphere. So all of this that is happening is the water cycle. Everything happening below the surface of the earth and in water is what is happening in the hydrosphere. The rest of it is happening in the atmosphere. So the water cycle. Water cycle means the water from different water bodies evaporates. Water bodies. Make sure not to include leaves over here. It evaporates, it cools, it condenses and falls back to the earth as rain or snow. This biogeochemical cycle is responsible for maintaining weather conditions. Now when it's so hot, does the rain not come as a breather? It does. And that's all because of the environment. The environment is so self-sufficient. It's like when it's too hot, the sun evaporates water on its own and it condenses and comes down as rain. So it maintains weather conditions on its own. The water in its various forms interacts with the surroundings and changes the temperature and pressure of the atmosphere. The word that we studied earlier, turbidity. Right? The next cycle is the carbon cycle. Again, something we are all very well aware of. The green plants will use the sunlight and the CO2 for photosynthesis. which will be then stored in the form of glucose, fructose if it's a fruit, sucrose. All of these are hydrocarbons. Carbon is stored in the plant as hydrocarbons. Then these green plants, when dead, let's say no one eats it, it's just fallen down and got buried into the soil, gets converted into fossil fuels, which are again made of carbon. Everything is mostly a hydrocarbon. These fossil fuels, when burnt, when you sit in your car, turn on that engine and use the petrol, you will be responsible for releasing carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Then the animals that will consume the plants, let's say this green plant did not just bury itself, it was consumed by an animal. That animal will contain the carbon stored in the plant, which will again return to the atmosphere when the animal decomposes after death, or when that animal itself is doing cellular respiration, is also when carbon dioxide will go back into the atmosphere. So this is the carbon cycle. Coming next to this cycle in a pictorial form, look over here. This little fellow will do respiration, with which it will use the carbon or the oxygen that was coming from here and will leave carbon dioxide. These plants will also do respiration. Note, it's respiration. So the animal respiration will also release CO2, the plant respiration will also release CO2, and this industrial emission will also release a lot of CO2 and a lot more things. All of this CO2 will go into the atmosphere, and there's presence of sunlight, and these good fellows, these trees, will fix this carbon dioxide and release oxygen, which again we will use. So all this will, when decay, form fossil fuels. So this all forms a part of a cycle, as you can see, is called carbon cycle. Coming next to the nitrogen cycle. The nitrogen in the atmosphere is fixed by nitrogen fixing bacteria present in the root nodules of the leguminous plants and made available to the soil and plants. Now, not all plants are leguminous plants. Those plants are biolegumes and are mostly pulses. The bacteria present in the roots of these plants convert the nitrogen gas into a usable compound called ammonia. Now this ammonia, NH3, is also supplied to the plants in the form of fertilizers. So this ammonia is very essential for the plants. We also use it in fertilizers. It's then converted into nitrites and nitrates. It also happens when lightning, बिजली जब गिरती है तब भी nitrates and nitrates बनते हैं. The denitrifying bacteria reduce these nitrates into nitrogen and return it into the atmosphere. This is the cycle. Look over here. It's lightning. Lightning plays an important role in the nitrogen cycle. All of these processes are releasing atmospheric nitrogen. This is the process. Making of ammonia is called ammonification. Nitrogen fixing bacteria in soil. The urine of these fellows and ours has urine, which again is a nitrogenous compound. Nitrogen fixing bacteria in the root nodules will fix all this nitrogen, which will be used up by these trees, these nitrites, everything in NO2 form, NO3 form, NH3 form. Everything will be assimilated by these trees and will be fixed for only us to use again and again. Oxygen cycle is again very simple. There will be a plant which will be doing photosynthesis, releasing oxygen. Then there will be an animal which will be releasing carbon dioxide, and then the same thing again. Sulfur cycle. This biogeochemical cycle moves through the rocks, water bodies, living systems. Now this will, we have sedimentary rocks which are formed by the melting of the volcano, the igneous rocks. All of that have a content of sulfur in it, and also the water bodies have a lot of sulfur content in it. So the sulfur is released into the atmosphere by the withering of these rocks and is converted into sulfates. These sulfates are taken up by the microorganisms which are present in the soil to convert it into various organic forms. Organic sulfur is then consumed by animals through food. And when these animals will die, the sulfur is going to return into the soil, which is again going to be used up by the plants and microbes. So the cycle continues, and you have to understand this fact that the plants are the key component in every cycle. So let's be very aware of this fact. The purpose of this module, the purpose of this course is to understand how environment, how plants, trees, nature is helping, doing everything, and we must do our part to at least not destroy it. Ending this topic, let's end it on a very constructive note. To take a firm step towards growing more plants, let's become green. Let's grow more plants, because as we have seen in all these nutrient cycles, if there's one thing that's constant, is the plants that are doing everything. So let's be very conscious of our choices and make healthy choices, and let's go green. I'll see you for the next topic. Thank you.